It is time for another round of thrift flips using clothing I already have. So I guess technically they're not thrift flips, they are clothing I already have flips, but that doesn't have the same ring to it. Basically, we're altering some more clothing that I just want to make some tweaks to. I'm not really loving where it's at right now. Rather than shopping, we're just going to customize what we already have. So let's start with a couple of t-shirts that I don't want to get rid of, but I don't quite love in their current state. I bought these two band t-shirts almost a decade ago, but I really don't find myself wearing them anymore, despite still loving the band. The black one is a size small that fits really snug, and it's all up in my armpits, which I really don't love. This red one is also labeled small, but it's a much more comfortable fit. However, I just never reach for it. I think both would better meet my needs if they were reshaped into some grungy work tees. The first thing I wanted to change was the length. Both were a bit longer than I like, so I marked where I wanted the new hem to sit, then I cut off the excess fabric. I cut off the sleeves of the red shirt, lengthening the armhole openings just a bit to create a slight muscle tee look, and I removed the neck binding on both shirts to widen the opening. I checked the new shape of both before moving on, and I decided that I wanted the red shirt neckline a bit wider at the sides, but not scooping any lower at the front or back, and I also needed to even out the length of the armholes. The black shirt also needed the neckline widened a bit more. I also still needed some way to fix the fit under the armpit. So I cut the shirt open on both sides, cutting under the sleeve and going down each side. Then I used the strip of fabric that I had cut off the bottom when cropping it to create two panels to insert in those openings. I attached these down the length of the body of the shirt, and I pivoted around the curve of the armpit to continue attaching them onto the sleeves. This added about 2 inches on either side of the shirt and to each sleeve circumference. I trimmed off the excess fabric under the arms and folded it in to match with the hem. I then folded under the bottom hems of the shirts and did a simple zigzag stitch. I know you don't have to hem t-shirts like this, but it drives me nuts when the raw hems keep rolling under, which doesn't seem to happen as much along necklines and armholes. Although joke's on me, these ended up rolling up anyway, so I don't know, down the line I might end up picking out this stitch. I wasn't quite done with the black shirt yet though. I bunched it together with some rubber bands like you would for tie-dyeing. Oh, this one broke. Oh, how dare it, how dare it. Yeah, that one's rude. And then I sprayed it with a solution of bleach diluted with water. I tried using clothing-safe Clorox bleach first to no effect, so I ended up using all-purpose cleaning bleach and it started working immediately. After letting this sit for about 10 minutes, I poured some diluted hydrogen peroxide over the shirt to stop the bleaching process, then I rinsed it in cold water before drying. Okay, I really like how this one turned out. It's definitely not perfect, it's a little bit rough around the edges for sure, but ultimately the goal with this was something super casual, so I think it's fine if it's a little bit rough. And I overall really like the way that this looks. Adding the strips of fabric down the sides really helped the fit a lot. I think it's still a little bit smaller than my ideal fit, but it's so much better. Like, it's not riding up into my armpits. And then doing the bleach design over top of that kind of disguises the seams unless you get really close to it. I also might still widen this neckline a little bit because right now it's just like a boat neck, but I think something a little bit more akin to an off-the-shoulder look would be really cool. But yeah, very happy with this one. And then this t-shirt is admittedly less exciting than the last one. Really all I did was just chop off the bottom and the sleeves, open up the neckline a little bit, and I definitely did not use the right tension on the hem, so it's a little wonky. But my intent with this one is just as a work shirt, something to wear while exercising or working in the garden, something to throw over my sports bras just so that I'm not fully out and about, you know? Just to have a little bit more coverage, but still something open to get a breeze passing through. It doesn't have to look good to be functional for yard work, for exercise, so this is fine. This is fine. This is fine. This is fine! It gets it out of storage and back into circulation and use and actually serving a purpose rather than just taking up space. Next on the chopping block is this brown skirt that has been one of my absolute favorites for years now, but it has a noticeable lack of pockets, which severely limits its functionality. Thankfully, I kept the top of the dress that I originally thrift flipped this from, having turned it into a costumey little Renfaire piece, so I had some of the original fabric to make my pockets with. And by some, I mean very, very little, actually. So I opened up the remaining bit of this brown fabric as much as I could by removing the elastic and the darts that I had added, and cutting away any decorative bits to see what I was left with. My usual pocket pattern was definitely going to be too big for this small amount of fabric, so I drafted a smaller one by just tracing my hand on a scrap of fabric, then making sure that my new pattern piece was small enough for the fabric I had to work with. This did mean that for one side of each pocket, the fabric is going in the wrong direction, but sometimes that is the choice I'm left with when I want things to match. And I feel like a pocket it's fine, because you don't really see it, so, don't worry about it. I then opened up the side seams of the skirt several inches further than the length of my pocket pieces. I then could attach the pocket pieces like you normally would if making an item from scratch, by lining up the pocket edges with the side seam edges, making sure right sides of the fabric are together. Once these were attached, I flipped the skirt inside out so I could connect the pocket pieces, then sewed up the remaining gaps in the side seam above and below the pockets. Lastly, I did a small stitch above the top of the pocket opening to keep it laying in the right direction. It feels so good to finally have pockets on one of my favorite skirts that I've been wearing for years, and this is the one thing that sometimes holds me back from wearing this. Solved. Problem solved. And it was so simple. I could have done this years ago. I know it didn't need to be a matching fabric. I could have found something similar or complementary, but I don't know, if I have something that matches, I like to use it. That limitation as far as the amount of fabric I had to work with did hold me back a little bit, insofar as my pockets are now very small. They are adequate to the size and shape of my hand. It's just that the opening of the pockets is a bit on the small side. The placement turned out really good though, which is great because I didn't really plan that. I just was like, yep, let's put it like an inch below the waistband. So thank goodness for that. It's gonna be so much more functional going forward. Last up are a couple of items I wanted to try dyeing to change the color. This orange tunic dress has made multiple appearances on the channel over the years, last being altered to have the adjustable side ties, but I think the color is just too pumpkin-y for me. It's just so intensely orange. The second item is this oatmeal colored little top that I thrifted in the fall that is just kind of a bland color. It also has a completely open back that will need adjusting as well. After removing all of the lacing so they don't end up dyed unevenly, I also had to use the fabric shaver on the beige top to remove some pilling. I then brought out some scraps of fabric that I thought could be a good match for the beige top to later close the opening in the back, and I cut a piece a little bit larger than the opening from each to be dyed with the two garments. This was incorrect though, and we will get to why that is later, but now it's time to get to the dye. I used Rit dye in the color Scarlet for both items and the scraps of fabric, using the sink method. It was really hard to get the water hot enough, so I periodically added boiling water from the tea kettle and stirred every few minutes. I left everything in the dye bath for about 45 minutes before following up with a Rit dye fixative for 20 minutes. I then rinsed everything with cold water before running it through a quick cycle in the washer and dryer. I still needed to close the gap at the back of the shirt, so I cut the scrap of fabric that matched best after dyeing down to the size of the gap, leaving extra for seam allowance. I then made a narrow hem around all edges before attaching the panel underneath the edges of the back opening, making sure the lace-up loops would still sit on top. I gotta be perfectly honest with you guys. Neither of the items that I dyed turned out quite how I was hoping. Not necessarily badly, but just like, oh, that was not how I saw this going. Thus is the way of crafting, I guess. So this one, I was hoping for a more obviously red tone to the fabric. This is still orange. This is definitely still orange. I don't know how it's reading, how it's showing up on your screen, so maybe it's looking red to you. This feels still very orange to me in person. That being said, it does not feel pumpkin orange anymore, which is an improvement. So it's an improvement for sure. It's more of like a bricky kind of orange. It is better, but it's not quite where I hoped to end up. Now, hindsight is 2020. I definitely could have, maybe should have used a color remover prior to dyeing it, but I don't really want to do that. That sounds incredibly tedious and annoying. The process of dyeing clothing is already kind of time consuming and tedious to begin with. I was hoping that the richness of the orange that it started with would enhance the richness of the red color, but it kind of just added like a tint over it, so it's a more reddish orange. You know, you live and you learn, you craft and you learn, whatever. So it didn't quite turn out how I had hoped or planned, but it's better. The color is definitely better. This is where we're leaving it for now. And then there's this guy, which I messed up a little bit, which is why I'm not wearing it at the moment. This definitely did take the red dye, and as far as I can tell on screen, it's appearing very red, like a very bright tomatoey red. In person, it kind of looks like uncooked salmon. It's not a very appetizing color. So even though this turned out much more saturated than the orange dress, it's just a different shade of red than I was hoping for. The bottle led me to believe that it would be much richer. And then with the scraps that I dyed to make the back panel, if you can see the linen napkin that I dyed, this must have a little bit of polyester or something synthetic in the blend, because it didn't take the color as much as I anticipated. Like, it just isn't as vibrant as I hoped. It's kind of pink. Whereas this fabric that I ended up going with is, I believe, is a cotton linen blend, and this took the color much more richly, and that's a closer fiber content match to this shirt than the linen napkin. So that's what I went with for the back panel. Now here's where I messed up. I measured the item laying flat on the table. Listen guys, it's been a long month. I have like no bandwidth left, no brain cells left to speak of. So I measured it laying flat on the table, and then I should have doubled that, because the thing is, I'm like 98% certain that once on me, this circumference would fit around my rib cage no problem. The issue is getting it on. It's way too tight to get it on because of how small I made the panel. You know what? I could just seam rip the one so I could show you the color on me. I might do that. It was really late at night when I realized this, and I was like, you know what? We're just gonna roll with it. Sometimes stuff doesn't turn out how we hoped. And now I know it doesn't have to just match the circumference of my rib cage. It has to be able to get over my ginormous noggin. Let me seam rip this really quick so I can actually show you. And I'm not really sure what color I'll go with if I re-dye this. Like, I could just, I walked over here with just the cap. Wow. I need this, not the cap. I'm telling you, there are no brain cells left to speak of. I don't know, what color do you guys think I should go with? I could just try a different shade of red. All right, let's see if I can get this on. I mean, actually this color is not as terrible as I thought, but it still isn't what I hoped for. Maybe I will just do a more saturated, darker shade of red, because I don't have a lot of red in my wardrobe. I think this could be nice for a little bit of variety. This is gonna live with my costume things, like with my Renfaire stuff, but yeah, it would be nice to have a little bit of variety if I want something more colorful, if I want to branch out from my usual black, brown, and occasionally green. It's cute, but not quite the right shade. And I was correct about it fitting, but just not being able to actually get it on. I have it clipped at the bottom here, and then it's just flopping all over the place. But like, the size of the panel is big enough, just not to get over my head. Anyway, so that's that. But you know what? I've brought 2 t-shirts back into circulation and use. I've got pockets on a favorite skirt that has long since needed pockets, and I made an attempt. An attempt was made with 2 of my costume items. I think there is hope yet for my 2 items that I dyed, but I'm not gonna worry about that right now because I'm tired. I don't know if it's been a crazy month for you, but it has been an absolutely insane month for me, and I don't foresee it letting up anytime soon. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you made it all the way to the end of this video, I have no idea what we're doing next, so I guess leave a fireworks emoji. I like fireworks. That sounds fun. Let's leave a firework. Thank you again for being here. If you enjoyed hanging out, make sure that you subscribe so that we can hang out again next time, whenever that might be. I don't know. And I will see ya when I see ya. Okay, goodbye.